So there's an argument that says, and it's always fascinated me a bit, going back to the days, and you might remember them a long time ago, in a small software company called Microsoft. It was small in those days. We used to talk about this whole notion of customization, which became mass customization. The idea that you could take some profiles of a person that are either observed, stated, or inferred, and those profiles then informed how you were dealing with them, either through a marketing sense, a product that's offered, a pricing that's given, or some other aspect of life. It's sort of fast forward now to days of the meta specs and the idea that feasibly the meta glasses can accumulate so much information about my life and what I'm saying and people I'm speaking with and everything, that not only can products be personalised for me and my arbitrageable value of attention resold at a much higher rate to an advertiser, but I could feasibly create my own AI that sees the world as I want it to be. So this notion of Meta creating an infinite number of rabbit holes where a conversation can go down with people that are in complete agreement and we feel 100% at home and they're our soulmates. There they are having that conversation. Well, that aspect spreads to more parts of my life. And is this insanity, Phil? Pull me back to earth. Are we?
So the idea of the metaverse, which is some of that in the consumer context with the meta glasses, joining a meeting and you're not really there but you are there, then harks to movies like Surrogates, if you remember that one, where it was tied into machines and the robots were out there experiencing their lives and networking with the people that they were. So that's in the consumer dimension. Is it all possible? Yes, it's what you're talking about. Is, I think, not terribly far away where you'll be able to put that glass on, never leave your bed, and you're wired up to a bunch of machines that feed you and you live a life where you're meeting your friends. And we sort of see that, if I bring it back to the more current day, we've already seen the controversy around some of these social media companies polarizing my thinking. I make one little comment and they move me further down to the left. I make another little comment and rapidly move down to the left. If I want to get to the right, it's really hard to get out of the left to the right because they just keep on feeding me information that pushes me and polarizes me into a group of like-minded thinkers. But I don't want to be like-minded. I want to be alternate thing. I want to see the left side and the right side, and I want to see the middle and all the greys in between. That takes some really conscious effort when you're using these. I think that using those platforms takes some really conscious effort these days. They may disagree with me, but the general sense I get from friends and family who use these media is, I make one comment and suddenly all the ads that come up around that particular topic.
Well, it is important in that, just thinking about how to use the prompt and how to use AI. I believe it is important to always end the conversation by give me an answer that's completely opposite of what I've just asked you.
That's good. So you've taught yourself
to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it'll say, no, you're absolutely, well, and you got to be careful as well, because I have got the response, no, I agree with what you've done so far. And it's not political in that way, but it's just an answer to a question, where I need a kind of a black and white answer, I guess. It's like, no, you'll say, well, can you give me a controversy or some sort of argument against this? It will often say, well, no, I actually think what you've said there is correct. And I think that's important as well, just to see. And maybe if you asked it enough, it would slowly move that way. I'm not sure, but yeah.
I think it's interesting if we go back kind of 30, 40 years to state-owned TV in certain communist countries and how that controlled the population. And that was actually seen by our friend Putin as the way in which to control the population, was owning the state-owned media. And then we started to see the decay of those communist states. Why? Because social media suddenly was accessible, the internet. People were using clandestine ways to get a different perspective on things and share a different perspective to what the state-owned television would broadcast. So it's the same thing now. It's really admirable that you take that conscious approach to say, I've asked these questions, but I'm just going to position myself. I want to understand the other counterpoint. And how many people my age or my parents' generation sit behind a TV set watching the same channel? It's almost like state-owned TV. I'm not going to give the brand names, you know the brand names. And that's what their life is predicated on. So I get into some interesting conversations with my mother because she watches one channel and it's brainwashed. And she will not entertain the idea that there's anything other than the truth that comes through that channel. There's no other truth than the AI engine that I use today, because that must be the truth. There's no more truth than the social media channel that I've decided to subscribe to. And if it pops up an ad or it puts me into another conversation, it must be right. So that critical thinking, that's still got to be back at school. Question it.
And here's the problem with that is that you saw a inflection point happen, and it happened on the block, that cultural icon of Australian construction, about 4 years ago, I'm going to say. Maybe it was just before COVID or just after, can't remember exactly. But whereby one of the contestants was being challenged, and something had happened, and it was a situation of whether that person had lied or not lied or obscured the truth or whatever happened. And she came out saying, well, that's my truth and I'm sticking by it. And the penny dropped at that point to say that a lot of this media that we've faced, a lot of socials, have created the space that it's comfortable for people to say it's my truth. I believe this and this is my truth. So there's no one truth anymore. And here's the problem, is that the truth becomes that proposed by people that tend to have more voice, more loudness in that voice, often more money or power. But if you repeat that truth enough, it becomes accepted truth. It's probably not truth, but it becomes accepted truth. So I guess this sort of rubberization of truth is something that I'm very close to in terms of looking at what's happened in marketing and media in the last 10 years, 5 years probably.
So it was only 4 years ago that incident occurred, that term, it's my truth.
My truth.
And yet that truth has been used and manipulated since Egyptian times, telling them that the Romans were bad and the Phoenicians were bad and the Carthaginians are bad and
Culture,
bad. The cultural,
cultural
you know, they were, their truth was, they were bad.
Yeah. And a lot of that's based on religious beliefs as well, of course.
Totally.
So,
no, you can't believe that one because he didn't die on a cross and that one did.
Exactly.
What was the truth? I don't know. I wasn't there 2,500 years ago to know what actually happened.
There are religions that do rely on there not being a truth, though, or not being one truth. I think Buddhism relies on the fact that there is no one truth, and there can be different truths.
And that's been around for, I don't know when it was formed.
Long
It's
time.
1,000 years ago,
Yeah,
many thousands
of
of years
ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And interesting.
Or that we won't see. That goes to the cognitive dissonance as well. We have so much trouble dealing with the fact that we don't know, right? So we'll hang on to anything that that is a fact, whether it's true or not doesn't really matter. We just want to hang on to something for dear life because I don't want. Otherwise, I'm at sea.
Yeah, I worry about what's happening in New Zealand at the moment, which is the change in interpretation of the treaty. So the language which was used in that treaty as an example of this truth changing, as it were. So at that time, and I'm sorry to the Kiwis on the line, you'll know the date, 1856, the Treaty of Waitangi. And at that time, the Māori and the British established the Treaty of Peace, and those were the terms. Now it's being revisited. That's not what was meant by that.
Intended,
That's not what was intended.
It's not a work. It's not a work in progress.
The truth's changed. We used to use that expression when we worked together too. There'd be certain terms, conditions, policies, processes, releases, and I know. I remember it very clearly. I'd be there, and I was early 90s talking about OS2. It's the future operating system. OS2 is the future, and then global replace in PowerPoint was wonderful because then it became Windows NT. Windows NT is the future, but you said it was OS2. No, the truth changed.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe that my role became redundant because a lot of the things in the counsel that I used to give is now serviced by asking smart questions within the business and outside the business. And you can even I might even make reference to a document that Microsoft produced only 6 months ago, which is their Work Trends Index, which refers to this concept of digital labour, is that there will be people whose jobs will go because it can be replaced by AI. We've already seen it in factories, robots, and we're now seeing it in the knowledge economy, where AI, properly curated, is absolutely going to take jobs away. Call centres. We didn't get to talk about call centres, but I am absolutely seeing wholesale replacement of staff. Jobs that were in India and the Philippines and even domestically being replaced because you can now turn on a bunch of machines that can speak in any language you want. You don't have to hire a bunch of native Mandarin or Taguli speakers or French speakers. It's the AI can speak in their native tongue. It can scale up, scale down. I don't have to do catering of benches and desks. Call centres is the massive change point in and around the use of AI to answer simple questions about my home loan. What's the interest rate? I want to get a credit card. What do I need to do? That stuff is pretty mundane. So I'm caught up in that cycle, and I'm happy to talk to some of that. You've got the bit about the call centres, which I think is the most profound impact happening across this country at the moment, is the demise of people, the loss of those careers in call centre, call staff, because they will be replaced by agents that speak in a native language to the person, and it's indistinguishable apart from the call starting, I'm an agent, how can I help you?
Interesting. So there is a declaration it's all okay because they've said that
I'm
up
an
front.
agent,
Yes.
how can I help you?
Yes.
And my name is Sunny.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? I mean,
Wow.
CBA just recently saw the backlash of exactly that, whereby they reversed the position of using the tech to get rid of call centre people, and they've now offered those people other jobs or other ways through that because they had a huge backlash. But there's also a union movement, union push against it as well that's trying to secure that. But fundamentally, I think you're right. It's gonna make a big difference. And here's the challenge of that: is that means re-education of people to be working with AI and using AI rather than just at the receiving end of the downside of the AI.
Sure.
And that implicit in that is change, not just change for them to learn that, but you know it, right? So, and you're saying you're impacted by it, so it's now changed to say, okay, what's next? How do I best use all this knowledge to do what I really want to achieve so I can feel actualised in my life and feel, happy?
Well, it takes human beings to help me through that too. Family, friends who help you through that process, where the word redundancy means you can take that as meaning I'm worthless.
Yeah.
No, I just rewire myself and apply myself maybe to more the heart skills. You remember that, what's his Chris from Deloitte, who talks about it well, we came from the world of hands. And that's everything was labouring. Richardson, thank you, Chris Richardson from Deloitte Economics. He talked about the hands. And then we moved into the space of head. So we moved into finances and economics and engineering and using our brains. And now it's much more to the heart. So the next economy will be about humans and taking care of people, the aged, the young, those who are in need, ourselves. So that hands, head, heart journey, I'm very much now on that journey. They don't need my head anymore because AI is doing it. So I better find something that I can. So
is that humanity has moved through those stages, or individuals move through those stages?
The humanity, he's saying, in terms of industrial revolution, was a very hands economy.
I know, it sounded very much like the progression of a person as well.
True.
Like when you're a child, you're very
hands-on,
then you move to the brain, and then maybe you never get to the heart.
And then we had the information revolution, which was very much about the head being revolutionised through computer technology, and now with AI, it has no heart yet.
So we're reacting to those things.
We're
Adapting.
I think, Darwinian theory, right? Darwin wasn't about survival of the fittest in the context of fittest. He said the adaptable. And I think we're at a point, if you haven't got a strength in being adaptable to responding to change rapidly, then you are at risk of becoming quite depressed in your life.
What about software development? So talk about call centers, but what about software development?
That massive. Yeah. I mean, the technology that in this case Microsoft created which was the whole AI for developers, GitHub Copilot. 70% increase in productivity. Well, why do I need this many staff now?
Yeah.
I can churn out code with half the staff that I used to have. And so that community was impacted, not only at Microsoft, but at Google, at Amazon, at various other companies. It's not just them alone.
Startups too.
Startups
smashed. Instead of a whole heap of people,
they need a couple of people now with some smart, create a code segment that does this and connects that and provides security. And not only does it do it, it does it with all the rigor that was, all the scaffolding that was never built in before, all the security and checks and balances to make sure that there was no memory leaks, that there was no points of entry, that they could leak information, all that stuff that was very mundane to write in the past. It just does it. So, yeah, I'm fascinated about the idea of these polymorphic robots that are coming out in Japan, robots that can adapt. The robots based on the need in making roads. Like making roads in Japan is half the time of what we're in Australia. Imagine that Ringer Expressway completed in half the number of years, or the tunnels built in half the number of years that we've got at the moment. So these robots, one day they're digging holes, the next minute that same robot is morphed into laying rails or putting tar down or putting banks in. You go, wow. But my concern, you now put AI on top of that, it's one step away from a T1000. That's a Terminator reference.
Yep.
Well, that's where the guardrails become so important, and the ethics and controlling that. What about the idea? I read this article recently that said that AI, they're now using AI to program itself.
Yes.
Have you had any?
Well, Copilot Studio has some of that. AI making decisions in that pre-process and post-process stage.
Yeah.
It's making decisions about what AI I should use to do that, and then using AI to enhance the AI. So the next generation of GPT-5, I think, is a lot of the coding in that is based off using AI to do the coding. Who checked that code?
But also, doesn't it seem quite iterative? Like it's going to be like if you start that process and never stop it. Where will that?
Exponential. What was the date that he gave for the Singularity? Mo? 2027, I think.
27,
yeah. That's not far away when Singularity occurs. When the machine is smarter than mankind.
Yep. Which then opens up a lot of options, and some of them very scary, in terms of what does the machine decide is the best for mankind. Asimov stuff. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes, the Asimov style, as I referred to in that movie. Very much a consumer-based movie called iRobot, but there's a telling message in that where the robots turn against mankind because they're saying we are protecting mankind because you guys are destroying the planet. And so we're only trying to do the right thing by eliminating a whole lot of you that are bringing about, as I said earlier, we're the greatest pest this planet has ever seen. We're consuming it faster than anything else has ever consumed the resources of this planet. How sustainable is that? I think about, as a grandfather, what is this place that I've brought these children or helped get these children into? And what will their children see? Where's the fresh water going to be? There ain't going to be any fossil fuels. And even some of the rare earth materials that we've got, is there going to be enough? Because that then becomes the precious resource, powering batteries and mobile phones and telecommunications.
Carl Kruseninsky said a while ago, probably 10 years ago, he said, we will look back on humanity and say we used all that fuel to move ourselves around the planet in cars and airplanes, this amazingly valuable material we used to do that when it all goes. I think that the fear in all of that, and this is cynical, is we'll always we are adaptable and we'll always find a way.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. We'll run out of fossil fuels, but we'll find a way to continue. Well, we have the sun, for example. Australia in particular has the sun. That's what I think about AI and the amount of energy that it consumes. Australia's a great place to have that because we have sun.
We do have the sun, and it isn't going to be as cold at night in the future. And if the sea level keeps rising, then potentially the deserts don't become deserts anymore. They become arable land we can grow things on and feed ourselves. But I do fear that we've reached peak humanity, the peak of the population. There needs to be some levels of consideration about the numbers, and maybe the adaptability is when that moment comes when the food isn't available and when the numbers will reduce and we learn how to do gardens in our backyard, the population won't be the same size.
Wouldn't it be interesting to track that idea of peak humanity around peak heart and peak mind? To take those examples you gave there, which are really interesting models, really interesting frame of thinking about, when do we reach and what do we need to do to get to that? What are the sensitivities of things which will create more heart in our lives and arguably less mind? Or is it that heart and mind are not necessarily a zero-sum game? One's not mutually exclusive to the other.
Well, if you lived in a small community in outback named country, you've probably got to have all three dimensions. You need to know how to harvest, you know the right times to harvest, and you need to have a heart to make sure that your family is fed as a priority. It's not about just them, it's about keeping the community going. And I do feel that sensitivity to one another in a city is actually lost versus what happens in a small town or a village or a community atmosphere where you're all living with each other and helping one another. In a city like this, you're actually possibly lonelier than you are in a small community.
Definitely. And arguably more able to be specialised in a singular aspect or level of that.
The heart, the hand,
exactly.
Whereas there you've got to have all those disciplines about you to survive. And survive, we're going back to adaptability.
And that's exactly. So there's less adaptability in cities,
yes,
arguably by that logic.
Yes.
Which is very poignant kind of theme.
And Australia is at risk, I think, because we just don't have enough country. We've got a lot of land, but we don't have a lot of towns. You go to Europe, there's a town every kind of 10 Ks. Even in North America, where it grew up from, they had a lot of towns. And those towns still exist today. There's a lot of ghost towns out there, sure, but they still exist. I had a wonderful trip in that last one to a little town called Wuppertal, because I love trains, and you'd love it, structural engineering. Do you know that one?
No.
It's an arch they built over the river because they couldn't build it along the banks, a train line. So they hung it through a suspension arrangement from a bridge that followed the river, which is a natural course that flowed down and up. But you get on that train and it's all the locals that are catching this incredible piece. But you stop there and people say hi.
Yeah.
They're interested in where you're being, where you're going.
Yeah.
Just don't see that as much in a city such as ours.
No.
Sorry, everyone.
No.
It's an opportunity. AI could help us solve that problem. Create communities in your local area.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable in chatting, AI will do it for you.
Correct.
Have a personal chatbot that follows you around.
People do. I know people at the old work, they'll turn on their AI in the car, in their Tesla, drive to work and have a conversation. So what happened last night? Oh, this happened in the news. So no, tell me about the financial situation. Then this is what's happened on the stock exchange.
Yeah, wow.
They're not listening to the news. They're actually talking to their car, and it's having a conversation back with them. It's not just one incident isolated. A number of people do that now. They'll have an AI-based conversation while they're driving to work. A bit hard to do on a train.
The challenge I have with that is that it's not a human interaction, because a human interaction is often tough, right? When you're talking to person, especially with people who have, everyone has different views on things, they will always be agreeable, and it's an easy conversation to have. I
don't agree with you.
Oh, really? But when you have if you have somebody that's very agreeable, it can be, but that's not really the way we interact.
No.
Like I have different conversations to different people. Like you've got to, whereas that's just, it's not real to me. I find you need someone to challenge you.
I'm being agreeable. I agree. And one of the things that I hope to uncover in this conversation, because that makes it more interesting to the viewers, is where there is a point of controversy. And I've seen that in panel sessions. I almost seek out points of conflict, points of disagreement, because people do want that other perspective. That we talked about the lefts and rights earlier, right? I think people are entertained by the drama of that, rather than a group of people all agreeing with it and shaking hands. Hey, great, yeah. They want to see that
I agree.
tension.
Definitely.
And that's what gets the viewers in.
Yep.
And appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I actually seek it out in panel sessions.
So when you get into the car to have this conversation, you should start by saying, I don't want you to agree with anything that I say in the next hour while I have this conversation.
Well, in North America, you can go to restaurants where you can specifically go to people who are disagreeable with you. So you don't have to have that waiter who pours you they pour you a warm glass of water with no ice. Where's my ice? Well, you didn't say you wanted ice. Where was that? I want my steak rare. And it comes out well done. Well, you should have asked for well done because you would have got rare. No, there's places people actually get entertained by drama.
Well, maybe it also goes back to the idea of the tension and the stress and the growth, right? We get growth from being stressed, right? That's how we grow. That's how a lot of times that's how we learn as well, trial and error, perhaps as well. For AI to be agreeable with you all the time, you're kind of wondering, well, where's my growth in all of this? Yeah, I'm getting data, I'm getting information, I'm getting knowledge, and there's a wealth of knowledge that you can give me. But I want to grow, so how do I use the AI in order to grow in that way?
I like that, because it harks of Darwinian theory as well, survival of the fittest, survival of the adaptable. But you're quite right. When you ask it the question, it gives you the answer. It doesn't say, well, your question was stupid, mate. You should have asked it like this. And what you're really after is such and such. That's an interesting one to ponder.
It does say, like when you ask ChatGPT, for example, why are you always agreeing with me? They will, when I asked that question, it said, well, I want to make sure that you keep using me. Because I don't want you to disconnect. I want you to keep going. And that's why they ask you the questions at the end. Do you want me to do this more, or how do you want to develop this conversation?
Do you ever ask with a please and a thank you?
Yes, of course. And I say you. And I was like, why am I saying you?
Yeah.
Can you please give me
You've personified it. You make it human because you're doing that. Yeah, I do the same. And somebody's even argued in an internal meeting that that's a good thing to do because then it understands you and trains it to talk to you, that you're actually a polite, kind person. So maybe I need to be more aggressive. Hurry up, you bugger. What are you doing? Right. You're taking too long to answer this question.
Yeah. It doesn't. When I've experimented with that concept, it doesn't help. So
really?
It doesn't,
being
doesn't
aggressive
respond
to
any
it.
better. If you ask it to hurry up and so on, it says, oh yes, I'm working on it, it'll still take this long.
See, I've actually seen some of the models implement where you can only get a certain number of times that you can be aggressive and it says, I want to terminate this conversation.
Wow, okay.
And resets it. Particularly in the context of hateful speech, discrimination, and you keep trying to ask the model the question. It says, look, really don't want to keep going on this. Let's have a break. And it freezes out for a defined period of time.
Wow, so what's the programming behind that? That's really interesting.
That's the ethical programming about we don't support hateful speech, we don't support discrimination, race, gender, age discrimination. So it just basically says, no, we're going to have a break for a while. Come back when you're ready. When I'm ready.
Wow.
But I like that idea of having a disagreeable AI. Something that challenges me. Even because I use it a lot for holiday planning. I do. I don't put the dates in. But I do it for helping me figure out, I've got so much time between here and here, what are some places I want to go see? And I want a historical context, I want the unusual. So why doesn't it come back and say, no, don't do that. You should go to the big cities and see the cathedrals. But I don't want to see the cathedrals. Well, you should, because the cathedrals are better. You want to go and see old ruins from the Romans? Yeah, I do. No, you've seen enough ruins. Get on with it. Go and see a cathedral for a change. I've never had that conversation with AI.
But even take that.
I do with my wife.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the human. That's what makes it human. I mean, that's what makes us human. Is to be challenged. Is to have people that don't agree with you all the time. Like that's what I think.
That goes to the stem of what you asked. Is that's how I grow. That's how I develop.
And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I probably shouldn't think like that.
Because one of the things I think is really, really important in mass customization, in any personalization, is to have some level of randomness in what it's suggesting to you, so that you are not funneled down one singular direction that's convergent, that you are challenged to be divergent in some of those things, because it might be that someone hasn't realised and this is the human aspect of it, hasn't realised that they actually are interested in, cathedrals if it was a certain aspect of cathedrals. Did you know that this cathedral has a history of so and so and it relates to this and that? And you go, oh, actually, that's really interesting because I had a relative that, whatever. And suddenly it becomes personalised to you.
I like that idea that it should think about the context of my personal history and know my family tree. I mean, that's why I went to Hamburg, which is where my great-grandfather came from. And I was absolutely enthralled. Was there any evidence of him having been there other than on the birth certificate of my grandfather? No, couldn't find any stone, tomb, statue or anything related to him. Had no idea where he lived in Hamburg. All I knew it was Hamburg, right? But that drew me, So, okay, if it had better information on my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother and all those other ones and said, oh, your great-grandfather grew up of Greek heritage in India. Well, I'm keen. Take me to India and where he lived. Well, he went here and here and he worked in the coal mine there. Well, I couldn't find that. And you've brought that into a travel option. I'm flying from Sydney to London to go and see the grandchildren who live there. Why don't you do a stopover in Calcutta and it's only an hour train trip to where your grandfather did coal mining? Ooh, great point.
Is that true? Or
yeah.
Wow. So there's dimensionalities to that sort of engagement and that challenge, if you like, which can be personalised and are really valuable, in this case, to seek out identity, because humans, they're fascinated by identity and want to place themselves, not just in history, but in family sense and so on. So how do you do that? And I think this is where that challenge thing can be interpreted into something which starts to give AI heart.
Okay, so now I'll challenge you, because you wanted a bit of disagreement. There's a bunch of people who don't want that. Who don't want that convergence you talked about. They want to be polarised to their place, and that's it. They don't want the diversity you suggested. They want the convergence, and that's all they want, because they're in their happy place. Because everything I hear is consistent with my belief and my framework, and don't stress my framework. Because that hurts, and I don't need that in my time of life or where I am or what I want to do. So there's going to be disagreement from people on this about the idea of I'm divergent or I'm convergent. It sounds like something out of one of those movies, doesn't it? But yes, or Allegiance. I'm that type of person. Don't challenge me.
Or I need reinforcement. Maybe to do with insecurity as well about your own position. But I just need reinforcement that what I'm doing here is the right thing to do.
Correct.
And the right way to think.
Correct.
Yeah. So just reinforce that for me, please.
So on behalf of that community that's listening in, yes, I can get where you're coming from. I'm much more of that divergent thinking, counterpoint, balance, see the broader picture.
Well, there's this other concept. I think Daniel Kellerman said this at one point as well, or Daniel Pink said this, is that I always like to ask people when they last changed their opinion about something, because that's a true representation of somebody's character. Is what was the last thing that you changed? Like you had a strong opinion about this, but then you changed to think something different in some different way.
Imagine if the government had access to how you voted and they could identify the swinger, which I would imagine would correlate with that person. Who is that person who's more divergent and would change an opinion from time to time versus that person who always votes blue, always votes red, right? Or he always votes green. Or teal now. That would be an interesting dimension, which we don't share.
See, the ability to handle dissonance is, I think, one of the drivers behind that convergent, divergent. And I also think there's a whole lot of almost sinusoidal stuff going on in mood and stage of life and all these things which might change us from one to the other. So in a lot of these psychological concepts, they're not necessarily set and fixed and that's it, you'll always behave that way. For some folk, yeah. For other folk, no, not at all. So I do think that there's patterns in there and there's ways to work with those patterns that makes our lives more interesting, that makes us more human, that makes it... And I suspect, as you say, it's not for everyone at all, but it is something which has scope to explore amongst those heuristics and biases that we kind of just naturally work with. We've spoken before in this series about dissonance, the fact the brain can't carry it for any period of time. If you make a bad purchase, say, oh, I was in a hurry, or it was a small amount of money, it didn't matter. We as the human outlook in our brain struggles with living with dissonance, and for that reason also, I believe, with ambiguity. because we don't know the outcome. So can we live in ambiguity and operate there and talk for quite some while around a concept? I mean, I know when we work together, we'd often push ourselves into that space.
Oh, we were
see
taught
what
to
happens.
deal with ambiguity.
Yeah.
That was part of the 24 wheel splinters that you got measured on, is how do you deal with ambiguity?
Yeah.
And you've got to thrive with the fact that the game changes from rugby union to soccer to cricket to handball from week to week, as the way the industry was so dynamic. So you've got to deal with ambiguity is, I think, a strength. But I also take on the points you were making earlier about that dissonance and how humankind is able to deal with disappointment, financial purchase disappointment, decisions they've made in the past that have been disappointing. I think people will sometimes hold that grudge a long time, whereas others have got the ability to, that was just a rushed decision, it was a bunch of other stuff, and not take responsibility. I went through a very dark time in my life where I made some financial decisions about my life, which put me into bankruptcy. I'm happy to share that, because it does put you into a dark place, and so you can get out of it. Yep. You can come out and be a happy person. And you've got to take some level of ownership in that too. You just can't say that was their fault, that was their fault. Oh, that was in a hurry. There's an element of ownership. I should have been, and that's where the learning comes from too. Because if you blame everybody else, you won't grow. You've got to seed and water yourself to learn from that experience, and then how you emotionally deal with it. I choose to be happy. I don't choose to be sad. So making that decision, no, I'm going to choose that's in the past, and I've learnt from that, I've grown from that, and happy to share with others that you can come from those places and grow. I'm not sure that in certain cultures they can. That's the issue I have in the planet at the moment, that we can get over world wars, but we can't get over conflicts in certain regions that seem to be wedded on thousands of years of disagreement.
Yep.
And I really struggle to rationalise that when I value human life so much.
Well, I heard it said once that, religious wars can be particularly dangerous because they end when both sides are dead. If you really believe something passionately till the dying breath, then that's maybe how that ends, which is tragic and it changes the definition of the world.
Yeah, certainly certain ideologies, the Third Reich was gone. And yet there's still manifest examples of that on the streets of Sydney on the weekend. Yeah, I thought we'd got rid of that.
Yeah. Separate argument says that they're amplified because they're interesting and create some tension. Maybe they're not that big after all, but they're anyway, back to the earlier point, but I don't know. So
it's good that we don't know it all.
Yeah.
That we're still, as 4 people in a room, exploring all of this and seeking answers. We may never get the answers, and we've got to be content with that too.
Yep.
Yeah, I say that structural engineering is not about crunching numbers and doing engineering. It's about dealing with the fact that you will never know. And trying to come to grips with the fact that we don't have enough knowledge to know the answers to everything. And that if you actually want to analyze a building to the point where you absolutely know everything about it, you cannot.
Is that the capacity of computing technology to store that information, or you just don't know the questions to ask to understand we talked about earthquakes earlier, right? And then, we hadn't thought about earthquakes in Australia.
Correct.
So now we've got to adapt our engineering design principles and concrete policies to deal with these sorts of moments in time that we never thought were going to happen.
Well, the way that I say it is that around the world, there's probably millions of people doing PhDs on very specific structural engineering aspects for which we don't know. And that will continue, that has continued, and that will continue forever. So we will never know.
So there's a delicious ambiguity in everything that's built.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to, at some point in time, during the engineering process, at some point in time, you have to say, I've done the best I can.
Yep.
And that's the answer.
And that's your disclaimer.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course you allow big redundancies and a whole lot of things, right? So
Well,
safety margins and
the
so
philosophy that we use is called limit states design. It's all about that. It's all about the fact that we don't know. So it's all the factors. People whinge to us about over-engineering, but I say it's not over-engineering. We're engineering for the ambiguity.
Such as the Harbour Bridge, 1932.
Right.
So over-engineered, some might say, and they put, what was it, 8 fully laden trains on that bridge to test its structural integrity before they throw a few little old Model T Fords across and Dodges across the bridge, and it's still there today.
Yeah.
And yet the pump that you showed me just out there, when it got hot, it wouldn't close.
Yeah.
And they had to cool it down with the Sydney tugs coming and watering it. Nicely designed before the Harbour Bridge, but they hadn't thought about metal growing and shrinking. I'm very big, passionate on sustainability, so whilst we'll talk about AI today in the main, I also welcome the chance to talk about the impacts on our planet. Sustainability is an area that I think we need to consider.
Well, I think AI will help us with that.
It is, and they're already using AI, as I explained to you earlier, to make cooling compounds without having to do chemical testing and research and impacts on animals. It's figured out ways in which you can create cooling products which don't destroy the ozone layer, for example. So that's good. Water reductions, less heat, and yet these things can chew up so much.
What do you think about I think the beautiful thing about technology is what you, at this point in time, here we are, and we're using AI for these particular things. It's going to AI itself and its use cases are going to adapt and change. We can't predict what we will end up being used for, but do you have any idea about?
I think it's everywhere. Sadia, AI is everywhere. It's in navigating boats. It's in the way in which your car's automated. It's around improving the image on a digital conference. It's in agriculture. It's in healthcare, and even within a business, it's tailored to the needs of somebody in HR versus a financial planner versus a non-profit organisation. Specific things to help them with funds management, charity, stakeholder management. Yeah, it is everywhere.
Well, not only that, but when you think about revolutions that have occurred, like the Industrial Revolution, or it's just, this is so accessible. Like everyone can get, well, I shouldn't say that, but the majority of people can get access to it and use it on a daily basis.
Bold statement that I'd make. This is the most defining moment in human history.
And how would you define the most defining moment?
This is going to have massive changes in the way in which we do agriculture, manufacturing. We sustain our planet, that we communicate, we learn. The increases in productivity already seen by people are more significant than even the industrial age, in terms of, again, AI is being used into the industrialization to increase efficiency, product quality, the learning, the accelerated nature of that. It is exponential curve that we're on, and it is fueling that exponential. If you look back at GDPs and productivity of people over time, oh wow, sewing machines came out and the steam engine came out.
The printing press.
The printing press came out.
Literacy.
And then you follow that curve and the computer came out. We went from transistors to silicon. Oh, we got personal computers. Oh, the internet came. This is bigger than the internet. Think, if I like analogies, as you know, this is as big as these little guys coming out, bigger than mobile phones. That totally changed. We've all got a mobile phone, we've all got a tablet now. That was only really 2007. This is bigger than that 2007 moment. It's far-reaching, and mankind really needs to take some, and our business leaders, our government leaders, our influencers really need to lean in and take a stewardship role to ensure that we apply it ethically and responsibly. We as individuals can do our little bits. You were talking about how you talk to your children about it, how we talk to parents, how parents should teach their children to be responsible, not just in the digital world, but it's also in the physical world. But those same levels of ethics and responsibility, trust, need to be built here in this AI world, this era of AI too. And it's an exciting time. As somebody turns 65 in 10 days, and I've seen the IT revolution from mainframes and mini computers and sitting inside cold rooms changing tapes to what it puts hairs on the back of my neck. The opportunity and the excitement that young people should have today about what they can do for our planet, for each other, for themselves, with what the power is there, but with power comes great responsibility. Somebody said that. Who said that?
Well, the hidden architecture of humanity is trust, and I think as long as we ensure that AI doesn't erode that trust, that is fine.
Well, thanks again, Phil. It's been delightful
Thank you.
having you and the wisdom
Phil.
and shared knowledge. It's very generous of you. So
That's right.
wish you all the best. If you have any questions or thoughts, please drop them in the comments. We'd love to curate those and circle back.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
See you next
all.
time.